Thursday evening. After 20 years of marriage, my 39-year-old wife, the mother of our two daughters and the love of my life, informed me she was going on a date with a coworker tomorrow night. Ella and I married as teenagers. Our relationship progressed quickly when she became pregnant less than a year into dating. Our love was intense, and 7 months after our wedding, we welcomed our first daughter, Grace. Our marriage had always seemed wonderful, filled with love and blessed with two daughters who adored both their parents. I built a successful landscaping business that grew into a multi-million-dollar venture, providing us with a comfortable, fulfilling life. Never in my wildest dreams did I anticipate such a revelation from my wife. I felt like I was struck by a ton of bricks as I sat on the couch with a glass of scotch. Ella explained that ever since our daughters went off to university, she'd been struggling with depression and unhappiness. From my perspective, we had the perfect marriage, making her confession all the more shocking. She mentioned that Ronald from accounting had become a close friend, supporting her through her depression. This was news to me. I wasn't aware of her struggles or that she had confided in anyone else. The idea of my wife seeking emotional support from another man was painful, but hearing that she wanted to explore a relationship with him was devastating. I found out that Ronald Boyd was married with 3 daughters. He seemed to act as a counselor, but in reality appeared to be more of a predator targeting vulnerable married women. Timothy, I can't do this behind your back. I hope you understand, but I need this for me. It might sound selfish, but give me this one night to see how it goes, Ella said. Though I was furious and felt like screaming, I knew my wife well enough to understand that once she made up her mind, there was no changing it. When she finished speaking, I sat there in silence, staring at her as she anxiously sat on the love seat across from me. I refused to let myself respond. Instead, I calmly finished my scotch, stood up, and began to leave the room. Timothy, don't ignore me. Stop pouting and being childish. This is happening, and I needed to tell you before I did anything. I would never cheat on you, and I need you to know everything that happens. We've always been honest with each other, and I will never lie to you, baby. I stood there, staring at Ella with a look that must have been filled with despair. She pulled her knees to her chest, curling into a protective ball. Without saying a word, I went upstairs to our bedroom and packed enough clothes and toiletries for 2 days. As I walked past her again, heading toward the garage, she followed me, her pleas barely registering. Please, Timothy, don't go. Everything will be okay. It's just one date, that's all. Just one night. Surely you can give me that after 20 years. I shook my head and drove off, unable to believe the nonsense she was spewing. That Thursday evening, I checked into the Ritz-Carlton. Yes, it cost $400 a night, but I didn't care. If I was going to be in pain, I might as well have some comfort. The calls and texts began almost immediately. After sending one curt response, I blocked her number. My message was simple. I would not be in contact until I returned home on Saturday after her betrayal. I knew my words would cut deeply. The next day at work, I instructed my secretary to block any calls from my wife and told security not to let her in the building. I already had a plan in motion and intended to see it through. I'm Timothy Walker, a man of action. At work and among friends, I'm known as the guy who gets things done, someone people look up to for leadership. At home, though, I'd become the docile, laid-back guy, eager to please and escape my more assertive side. It worked for 20 years, but clearly, I'd miscalculated its effect. In hindsight, I should have been more demanding and unwavering. I loved my wife and treated her like the queen of our household. I remember once reading and chuckling at the phrase, "Treat her like a queen, and she'll treat you like a servant." Now, those words felt painfully true, but I wouldn't let it continue. Friday morning, I called my brother, a detective in Miami, to ask for help. I explained my situation, and he quickly brought in one of his contacts, Edward Lewis, a private investigator. "Edward, this is Sergeant Paul. How are you, my friend? Listen, I'm on the line with my brother, and he needs your help tonight. I'm calling in a favor. I need one of your men to follow his wife this evening. Yes, tonight. We need to know who she's with and gather as much information as possible about this guy by Saturday morning. Run his plates, get his home address and phone number, and text them to me tonight. Photos of the couple would be good too, but for now, we need the information on this man. Paul, this is short notice, but I owe you big time, so I'll get it done. You want the guy's phone number and address tonight, with the rest of the info and photos by tomorrow. What details can you give me to work with? Exactly. I'll send over my wife's address, the time she usually gets home, and the first name of her date. He works with her at Brokers Unlimited and goes by Ronald, so it shouldn't be too difficult. She gets home by 5 p.m., but we don't know when the date starts, so you'll need someone on stakeout before then to follow them once they leave. Got it. Send me the wife's address, and I'll handle it from there. Timothy listened intently, a smile creeping across his face as his brother disconnected the call. His plan was falling into place, promising an unexpected shock for his unfaithful wife. Timothy knew he had to act swiftly. While the unfaithful couple was out for dinner, he intended to visit Ronald's wife, revealing the evening's betrayal and their spouse's whereabouts. Next, he called Jason, a longtime friend who had endured a bitter divorce and now exclusively used escorts to avoid emotional entanglements. Jason had the perfect number for what Timothy needed. The call went smoothly. Timothy arranged an overnight date with a young blonde, offering an additional $1,000 tip due to the special circumstances. He explained he wanted the girlfriend experience because he was going through a breakup. He specified there would be no trouble, but emphasized the need for the escort to play along if the wife showed up, acting as if they had met organically the previous night. Timothy was certain his wife would find them together. If she wanted a date with another man, he'd reciprocate, but with added flair. They planned to meet at his hotel for a drink to break the ice before the main event unfolded. His scheme was poised to deliver a dose of her own medicine, wrapped in a layer of surprise and theatrics. Ella, a dedicated real estate agent, hosted open houses every Saturday and rarely made it home before 6 p.m. This Saturday would be no exception, marking another hectic day. Flashback to Thursday evening, when Ella declared her desire for independence. After Timothy left, she sat fuming on the couch, replaying their conversation in her mind. "I can't believe he acted so childish," she vented to the empty room. Walking out without a word, what a jerk. Frustrated, Ella tried calling and texting Timothy, but received no response until a single message arrived. The mention of betrayal in his text made her cringe, momentarily reconsidering her plans. To her, the upcoming date with Ronald was just a harmless night out, not an act of infidelity. She rationalized, "It's just one fun evening. Timothy needs to get over it. We'll go back to normal, and I'll make it up to him tomorrow night. He always forgives me, and I know exactly how to make him forget about this." Friday night, she returned to an empty house, contemplating her plans once more. Should she cancel the date and call Timothy back? The anticipation of a fun evening won out, and she proceeded with her preparations. After a soothing bath, she shaved her legs, applied her favorite scented lotion, and sat at her makeup table, transforming her pretty face into a sultry visage. Smiling at her reflection, she admired her long, styled hair. She removed the tags from the short dress hanging on the mirror, slid on stockings she had never worn for Timothy, and attached them to a new garter belt she had purchased from Nordstrom earlier that day. As she adjusted the stockings, memories of Timothy pleading for her to dress attractively resurfaced. She felt a sharp pang of guilt, recalling Valentine's Day when Timothy gifted her a lingerie set from Victoria's Secret. She vividly remembered the hurt in his eyes when she told him she didn't wear such things. Pausing for over a minute, she pondered her decision, wearing stockings and a garter belt for another man. Timothy's accusatory words about betrayal echoed in her mind, giving her serious pause for the first time. She considered breaking off the date and calling things off. It didn't take long for Ella to overcome her guilt about offering something to her date that she had never given to Timothy. She slipped into the silky dress, zipped it up, and revolved in her decision to forgo a bra. The effect was stunning. Standing in front of the full-length mirror, she admired her long legs encased in black nylons and her large breasts swaying freely under the dress. "Oh, I can't wait to see Ronald's face when he sees me," she murmured to herself. though she reminded herself to make it clear that there would be no intimacy tonight, just dinner and dancing. She tried to convince herself that it was just a harmless date, but deep down, she knew she had desires she needed to control. The excitement of going out with Ronald had consumed her thoughts for the past month, and tonight it was finally happening. She resolved to have fun, dismissing her husband's behavior as childish. Ella believed Timothy would understand and let her enjoy herself, as he always relented to her wishes. She loved him for that. Just then, the final phone call from Timothy came in. Deciding to give their marriage one last chance, Timothy swallowed his pride and made the call. His love for Ella was still strong, and he was willing to sacrifice his dignity, humiliate himself, and beg her to reconsider the date. Ella felt a mix of nervousness and guilt as she saw Timothy's name on her phone screen. Gazing at her reflection, she knew her intentions were less than honorable, but she needed to hear from Timothy to make him understand and accept her decision. "Timothy, thank you for calling. I miss you so much, and I love you. When are you coming home, baby?" she answered, trying to sound composed. "Hello, Ella. I love you too, which is why I decided to call," Timothy began, his voice heavy with emotion. "I miss you so much, and my heart is breaking because of what you said you wanted to do. I'm begging you, please don't go out on this date. Just stay home, and I'll come over. I'll do whatever you want. I swear I'll make you happy and be the man you need me to be. If there's something I'm not doing, I can fix it. I just want to be with you. Can you please call this date off for us and save our marriage? Please, Ella." Hearing Timothy's voice crack, Ella felt a pang of guilt, though she couldn't deny the surge of power it brought her. Her once strong and resilient man was now pleading and crying, a stark contrast that made her feel oddly empowered. She knew he loved her deeply, and that his forgiveness would come once he understood her feelings. Their shared history, children, and enduring love convinced her they were unbreakable. "Oh, Timothy, I love you so much and can't wait to spend the rest of our lives together. But I need to do this tonight. It has nothing to do with our love. This is just one night for me to let loose and do something foolish. Please, give me this one time, and I promise I'll be yours forever after. I know you're hurting, and I'm sorry, but you're blowing this out of proportion. I'm just having dinner and drinks with a friend, that's all. Nothing will happen, and I'll be home tonight, back to being yours forever. You'll understand once it's over. Tomorrow we can talk, and you can reclaim me as your wife. I love you, Timothy, but I have to go," she said, tears brimming in her eyes. She wanted to hang up, but Timothy's pleas persisted as she ended the call. She carefully dabbed her eyes, mindful of her makeup, and gazed at her reflection. "I'm sure he thinks I'm being selfish, but Timothy, I'm sorry. I have to do this for me. Please don't be mad," she whispered to herself. She fixed her hair, touched up her lipstick, sprayed on some perfume, and tried to push thoughts of Timothy aside. Meanwhile, back in his hotel room, Timothy stared at his phone in disbelief. He wiped his eyes, feeling the anger rise within him. He had desperately pleaded with his wife not to go on this date, only for her to tell him it was happening and that everything would be fine by tomorrow. A wave of grief hit him as he realized he might have lost the only woman he had ever loved over the past 20 years. Across the street from their home, the private investigator, Edward, sat in his white van just before 5 p.m. He watched as Ella pulled into the garage. An hour later, he noted the arrival of another car in the driveway. Edward took down the license plate number, made a few calls, and within 10 minutes, he sent the requested information to Paul and Timothy. Both received the home phone number and address of Ronald before Ella and her date had even left. When Ronald entered the house, he immediately noticed the sadness in Ella's eyes. Recognizing the signs of her insecurity and guilt, he recalled similar situations. It was common for a wife to re-evaluate her actions when faced with the reality of stepping outside her marriage. Sensing the urgency, Ronald knew he needed to act fast and say exactly the right words. "Ella, what's the matter?" "You seem so sad," Ronald said, concern etched on his face. "Ronald, maybe we shouldn't go through with this. I've been thinking about Timothy and how he pleaded with me not to go out tonight. The guilt is overwhelming, and I feel like I've already betrayed him," she said, a tear sliding down her cheek. Ronald immediately moved to the couch, wrapped his arms around her, and leaned on his extensive experience with women to address her concerns. It took about an hour, but he was adept at understanding women's emotions and thought processes. Manipulating Ella into changing her mind was a challenge he welcomed and thrived on. "It's okay, Ella. We don't have to do this. I completely understand. You've never been out with anyone else, not even for something as simple as dinner or a movie. Timothy just doesn't get that we're only friends. Husbands often worry about protecting their wives from outsiders, but if Timothy knew how much I value our friendship, he wouldn't mind. I'm disappointed that we won't spend the evening together, but I respect your decision. I was really looking forward to your company and trying out that new restaurant. How about this? Why don't we just have a nice dinner, and then I'll bring you home? Surely Timothy wouldn't mind you having dinner with a friend," Ronald suggested. His nonchalant attitude reassured Ella, and the idea of dinner felt more acceptable. After all, she was already dressed and, deep down, still desired the night out. At 7 p.m., Edward, the private investigator, watched as the couple drove away and headed towards a downtown restaurant, immediately updating Paul and Timothy. Throughout the evening, he continued to send updates. The photos were easy to capture. The couple at dinner, holding hands, entering a dance club, dancing closely, kissing, and behaving like an affectionate couple. Edward also took several videos, including one of the two slow dancing while Ronald's hand caressed her backside. Before sunrise, all the photos and videos were sent to Paul and Timothy. Precisely at 8 p.m., Timothy made a call to Ella's father, Paul. They had been close friends and golf buddies for years, and this news was going to shatter that camaraderie. "Hello, Paul, it's Timothy," he began, his voice heavy. "Hi, Timothy. Are we still on for golf on Sunday?" Paul replied cheerfully. "I'm not sure, Paul. I have some bad news. Your daughter is currently out on a date with a man from her work. I thought our relationship was solid, but she told me she needed something more and decided to go out with him. You know how much I care for you and Aria, but I can't tolerate this. I consider our marriage over. She has broken our bond, and I can't forgive this betrayal. I wanted to let you know before the forthcoming events unfold. I'm sorry it has to end this way." "Timothy, are you telling me she's out with another man? Are you sure? That doesn't sound like my daughter," Paul said, disbelief in his voice. "Paul, I have a private investigator watching them right now. She's out with him at this very moment, betraying me, our marriage, and our children. This is hard for me to say, but I respect you and felt you deserved to hear the truth," Timothy replied, his voice strained. "Timothy, I'm so sorry. Please, don't do anything drastic. I know she loves you, and maybe you two can work this out," Paul pleaded. "Sorry, Paul. I'm done. We'll talk again soon. Let's reschedule golf for next Sunday. This weekend is already ruined," Timothy said before abruptly ending the call. With the cheater's address provided by the investigator, Timothy drove 20 minutes to Ronald's home. When a woman opened the door, Timothy asked if she was Mrs. Brooks, Ronald's wife. Standing there was a woman in her 30s, wearing tight jeans and a lace top that accentuated her figure. Timothy forced himself to maintain eye contact, pushing aside any embarrassment. "Are you Mrs. Brooks, Ronald's wife?" Timothy asked. "Yes. Is he all right?" she responded, concern evident on her face. "Oh, he's doing just fine. He works with my wife. May I come in for a moment?" Timothy requested. Once seated in the living room, Timothy delivered the devastating news. "Mrs. Brooks, I hate to inform you, but at this very moment, your husband Ronald and my wife are on a date. Just yesterday, my wife told me she needed to spread her wings, and your husband has been so wonderful to her that she felt compelled to repay his kindness," Timothy said, his words measured. "Are you sure?" "Ronald told me he was at his Friday night card game," Mrs. Brooks replied, incredulous. "Mrs. Brooks, I wouldn't be here if I wasn't certain. My private investigator is watching them right now. I have photos and videos, which I will share with you, but I thought you needed to know immediately," he explained. He felt awful leaving her sobbing, knowing that their affair had likely shattered 2 marriages. But this was the game Ronald had chosen to play. Saturday morning. After his breakfast arrived, Timothy sat down and poured a cup of the hotel's signature coffee. The aroma was soothing, and for a moment, he felt a semblance of peace as he settled into his overstuffed bed. However, that calm was quickly replaced by disgust and bitterness when he opened the photos from the private investigator on his phone. The only solace was knowing that she had returned home by 1 a.m. and hadn't spent the night with him. Timothy's rage boiled over as he watched the video of his wife's betrayal, tears streaming down his face. Seeing them kiss, and her lover's hand on her backside, shattered any hope for reconciliation. He vividly remembered the stockings she wore for her boyfriend, a gift he had given her just a few months ago, that she had seemed indifferent about then. Her treachery and disrespect were unbearable. The humiliation and feelings of inadequacy that engulfed him soon morphed back into seething anger. Ronald had clearly persuaded Ella to continue their evening after dinner, taking her to his favorite dance club. Deep down, she probably knew it was wrong, but she yearned for the experience just this once, not realizing it would be her marital downfall. Timothy felt an unprecedented sadness, tears flowing from a depth of pain he had never known, even more profound than the sorrow he experienced when his mother died or friends passed away. Watching the video for the third time, he paused at the precise moment Ronald caressed her, revealing her stockings, and screamed out to the empty room, "You will pay for this." In that moment, he knew it didn't matter if they hadn't slept together. Her actions were unacceptable, disrespectful, deeply hurtful, and an utter betrayal of their marriage. Saturday afternoon. At 2 p.m., Timothy met Clara at the hotel. They spent the next 2 hours getting to know each other. He was upfront about what he was seeking, and Clara fit perfectly into his plan. By 4 p.m., they were back at his home, and by 5 p.m., they were in his bed. Before getting into bed, Timothy had positioned a note that he had meticulously prepared for Ella. It read, "Ella, last night you broke our marriage contract and wedding vows, not to mention my heart. From the moment you broke that contract, I no longer consider us married. Legally, we are still together, but the contract is broken, and we are now both free to do as we please. I plan to take the master bedroom, as this is my home. You are welcome in any of the other rooms in the house, but are no longer welcome in my bed. Your clothes and belongings have been moved to the guest rooms. Please respect my personal space. You got what you wanted, your freedom, and now I have mine. I hope you're happy with your decision and your new life. Love, your ex-husband, Timothy." He removed his wedding ring and placed it atop the letter on the entryway door. Holding the letter at eye level, he took one of his collector knives, pierced the ring through the center of the letter, and embedded the blade deep into the wooden door. This would be the first thing Ella saw upon returning home that evening. 6:10 p.m. When Ella arrived home from work, the sight of a knife embedded in the door immediately set her on edge. It was a disturbing and unusual sight that sent a chill down her spine. Cautiously, she approached the door, scanning her surroundings for any other anomalies. As she neared, she saw a note pinned by the knife, accompanied by Timothy's wedding ring. Her heart raced, tears welling up as she read the letter. Clutching the ring and the letter, she rushed into the house, desperately calling out for Timothy, pleading for him to stay. Her sobs echoed through the dark, silent house. The only sound came from upstairs, from the direction of their bedroom. Following the noise, Ella ascended the stairs and listened at the door, recognizing the unmistakable sounds of lovemaking. Her anger surged as she flung the door open, revealing a young woman astride her husband. She stood frozen in shock, watching this stranger intimately entwined with Timothy in their marital bed. Rage engulfed her, and she screamed out, "How could you, you bastard!" She fled the house in a flurry of tears and fury, speeding to her sister Sophia's home. At Sophia's place, it took some time for Ella to calm down enough to explain what had happened. Through her sobs, she recounted how she found Timothy with another woman and felt utterly lost and betrayed. Sophia tried to console her, attempting to make sense of the situation. "That doesn't sound like Timothy. He adored you and respected you more than anyone I know. I was always envious of the way he treated you. This just doesn't fit. Did something happen recently? What do you think triggered this, Ella?" Still crying, Ella spoke in a hushed tone. "I don't know. Maybe it's because I went out on a date last night. That's the only thing I can think of. Perplexed, Sophia asked, "What do you mean you went on a date? With whom?" "Just a guy from work. It was just dinner and some dancing." Sophia's eyes widened in disbelief. "Let me get this straight. You went out with another guy last night, had dinner, and went dancing while you left your husband at home. Is that correct?" "Well, yes, but you're making it sound so bad." "Are you out of your mind? Do you really think a man like Timothy would be okay with that?" "I told him it was just a night out for fun." "Holy shit, Ella. I can't believe you're related to me. Now I understand why he had another woman in his bed, and honestly, I can't blame him." Ella's sobs intensified as she handed Sophia the note from the door, still desperate to make sense of the chaos. "Oh, Ella, you really messed up this time. You may have lost your husband and jeopardized your marriage out of sheer selfishness and stupidity. Listen, you can stay here tonight, but you need to go back to him tomorrow and straighten things out. I'll call him later and see if he'll agree to talk to you, but I'm not sure it will make a difference. You need to prepare for the worst, sis. If my husband found out I did something similar, he'd kick me to the curb. And Timothy is even more committed than David." Ella spent a sleepless night alone in Sophia's guest room, crying until late morning. Sophia texted Timothy, asking him to call her back as soon as possible. Knowing the reason for the call, Timothy promptly returned it. "Hi, Sophia. What's going on?" "Hey, Timothy. My stupid sister is here and explained what she did and what happened at your house tonight. I can't blame you for reacting the way you did, and I have to admit, that was some fast revenge." With a short laugh, Timothy replied, "Yeah, you know me, Sophia. I don't tolerate nonsense." "I hear you, Timothy. Look, she's a complete wreck, and I can't handle her in this state. You two need to talk this out tomorrow. I don't know if you're officially kicking her out, and I wouldn't blame you if you are, but maybe if she hasn't slept with this guy yet, there's a chance to work things out. Counseling might help, or maybe Ella needs some serious waking up. Anyway, please let her come back and talk tomorrow." "Sophia, of course she can come back. This is still her home, and I didn't kick her out. She left on her own. I'm not angry anymore, but the deep hurt from her betrayal remains. I'll let her talk, but I can't promise anything about our future. Right now, I'm torn between my love for her and my hatred caused by her actions. My emotions are all over the place. It's going to take a miracle for me to want her back, but I think you already knew that. Honestly, I can't believe my sister thought you'd be okay with her going out with another guy. What was she thinking? Just be patient, Timothy. She loves you, even though she's completely messed up. Bye, Sophia. Send her home whenever she's ready." "Bye, Timothy. You know you're my favorite, right?" "I know. Love you, Sophia. Bye." I returned from the gym to find Ella's car parked in the driveway and her seated at the kitchen table. She attempted to smile as I walked in. "You know we're not getting a divorce. We can work this out because we love each other," she said, trying to sound hopeful. I remained silent, poured myself a cup of coffee, and took a seat across from her. Ella nervously rubbed her hands together on her lap. After a few sips, I finally broke the silence. "That's fine with me, Ella. Divorce or no divorce, it doesn't matter to me anymore. Once you broke our marriage contract, the marriage was over. I don't consider us a couple any longer. You're free to date and be with whomever you like, just as I am. The only change is you won't be sleeping in my bed anymore. That ended the night you went out with your boyfriend." "Timothy, he's not my boyfriend, and nothing happened," Ella argued. "Ella, you went out on a date with a man other than your husband. You went to dinner, held hands, let him touch you intimately, kissed him, and spent our time together with him. To you, it might seem like nothing, but to me, it was everything. It's what ended our marriage. So, you win, no divorce if that's what you want." "No, I don't want a divorce. Give us time, and I'll be back in your bed. Now have you finished with that girl you were with? I won't put up with that." I laughed loudly. "That's funny. You were the one who broke our marriage contract, not me. You gave me up the moment you accepted a date with your boyfriend. You set me free the second you got in his car and left our marriage behind. I have no intention of stopping my time with Clara. She's young, pretty, fun, and an amazing lover. To be honest, last night was the best night I've ever had. We did things you never offered to me, and now I know what I've been missing. Why would I ever give that up? I'm not sure you're aware, Ella, but while you were out with your boyfriend last night, I paid a visit to his wife, Luna. Did you know they have 3 beautiful children? I doubt you even thought about that while you were with him. Anyway, she told me some interesting things about Mr. Nice Guy. Did you know you're the 3rd woman Luna has caught him with in the past year? She also mentioned that Scarlett Thompson from your office was the last married woman he had an affair with, which caused her divorce. Your Ronald boy has quite the track record. Luna told me she's finally done with him. She realized that once a cheater, always a cheater. I guess you fall into that category now too. You could have found a better lover to cheat with, but I wouldn't know. It looks like you and Ronald boy succeeded in breaking up 2 families with a total of 5 children. Nice work. Her expression shifted as the realization hit her. She had risked her marriage for a sleazy guy. The look on her face showed her anger at herself for her stupidity, and she was horrified to learn that Ronald had broken up other families. The anger boiled over, and she lost control, yelling at me. Timothy, he's not my boyfriend, and you have to stop saying that. I can't believe you went to her house and told her he was cheating. My God, it was just dinner. You're cruel and hurtful. And what about you? Being with another woman in my home is unforgivable. That has to stop. It was just dinner? Did you forget about the dirty dancing, kissing, and fondling at the club? I promised Luna copies of all the photos and videos so she can use them when Ronald tries to explain it was just dinner, like you did to me. I realize that in your mind, that's not cheating, but to the rest of the normal world, that is exactly the definition of cheating. Giving yourself to someone outside your marriage is a betrayal. When will you get that through your thick skull? So you think I'm cruel and hurtful. I'm curious, how do you define what you did, loving and caring? No, I'm not going to give up my time with Clara, and if you can't accept that, you don't have to stay. No, Timothy. I want you to stop seeing her and be with me. I won't see anybody else. I promise. You promise? Oh, you promise. That's rich. You promised to be my wife, forsaking all others, and that promise got blown apart, didn't it? So, Ella, here's the deal. If you don't like the arrangement, you are free to leave or get a divorce. Maybe you can move in with your lover since he'll need a new place to live too. Honestly, you two deserve each other. Or perhaps you can crash at your sister Sophie's place. I'm sure she'd love to have you. What a great role model you'd be for her girls. Timothy, are you going to stop seeing that tramp? Don't you love me? Don't you want to get back together and be with me? Ella, it's far too late for regrets now. The moment you told me you wanted to be with another man, you shattered me. Do I love you? My heart is full of love, but devoid of trust. I don't know if I can ever trust and love someone who discarded me so easily. No real man would let his wife be with another man, but you made that decision. You committed to it regardless of how I felt. You've opened our marriage, and now you must live with my desires as well. Right now, I desire to be with Clara, a young woman who fulfills needs I never even dreamed of. Seeing me happy with someone else stings, doesn't it? Now you get a glimpse of my pain. This is your payback. As for divorce, that's up to you. We can stay together as roommates and see what happens, or you can green-light the divorce papers, which I can have ready in a week. It's your call, sweetheart. It makes no difference to me, I said in a firm, authoritative tone. She could tell I was serious and knew not to challenge me at that moment. For the next month, I brought Clara home every weekend. We made love multiple times a day, and it was spectacular. She made me feel good and helped restore the confidence that Ella's betrayal had shattered. Ella loathed the weekends and constantly pleaded for me to stop seeing Clara, but I continued. Ella left the house whenever Clara and I arrived on Saturday night and only returned after she was gone. We had an arrangement where I'd text Ella once Clara left. I couldn't deny that I derived some satisfaction from Ella's pain, though guilt was beginning to creep in. The following week, I realized that there was no real intimacy with Clara, and the expense was becoming too much. When Ella returned on Sunday night, I told her I wouldn't be seeing Clara for a while and mentioned that I might look for someone else. Ella begged me to take her back and stop seeing other women. She admitted that she had made a mistake and didn't want anyone but me in her life. Timothy, you've punished me enough. Week after week, I had to watch this girl come into my home and be with the only man I love. The pain is unbearable, and I can't endure seeing you with another woman. Please give me another chance. I know I can't compete with a girl like that, but I can offer you a love and things no one else can. Her comment caught me off guard. Love. Do you even understand what that word means, Ella? Love isn't about betraying your spouse and announcing plans to date other men. I don't think you grasp the concept of love, and if you don't have it, you certainly can't give it. But here's what I will do. I won't date anyone until we try couples counseling. If we can work things out, maybe we have a future together. She sprang from the couch, hugging me and showering my face with kisses before finally landing on my lips. Oh, thank you, baby. I promise I'll make this right. Not so fast. I'm not forgiving you for what you've done. I'm just offering us one last chance before I end this marriage. Timothy, don't talk like that. You love me, and I know we can make it through this. Can I sleep with you tonight, please? She pleaded, kissing me. No, not yet. The images of you with that other man still torment me. Seeing you kiss him and letting him touch parts of you that were mine haunts me every minute. I'm beyond angry at you for recklessly hurting me and jeopardizing our marriage. You're very fortunate that our kids don't know about this. I can only imagine what they would think of their mother. It's clear I'm still furious about what you've done. Let's take it slow and see how it goes with counseling. I scheduled an appointment with Dr. Brown for that Tuesday, beginning a grueling journey of reliving the betrayal, pain, and agony twice a week for the next 3 months. It was the same cliched therapy you read about everywhere, just as excruciating. I had to confront the affair repeatedly and endure hours of psychobabble. Life would have been so much simpler if she had just remained faithful to her vows. Apparently, that was too much to ask. After 3 months of twice-weekly counseling, we managed to work things out. Ella came to understand the depth of pain and hurt she had caused, and she grasped the reason behind my reaction. She complained about my form of revenge, but I explained that when she broke our marital contract, she also granted me my freedom. Eventually, she understood, though she remained unhappy. Dr. Brown criticized me heavily for my actions, but I didn't care. I'd do it all again in a heartbeat. I agreed to take her back under the condition of signing a postnuptial agreement, which stipulated that she would forfeit everything in the event of another extramarital affair. She consented to having a GPS tracker on her phone, granting me access to her emails and text messages and practicing complete transparency. I made it clear that we had a zero-tolerance policy for any form of infidelity, whether emotional or physical. She promised never to even allow another man to flirt with her and vowed to remain faithful indefinitely. Despite her assurances, I couldn't shake Luna's words from my mind, once a cheater, always a cheater. A year later, we were back to where we had been before her infidelity, though I monitored her much more closely, aware that it could happen again. Her sister, Sophia, and I collaborated to ensure Ella stayed on the right path. Ronald's divorce had been costly for him. His wife threw him out, claimed the house, secured child support for their 3 children, and obtained alimony. He now lived in a studio apartment with barely any money left after paying for his infidelity. Ironically, Ronald lost everything over a dinner, a few dances, some groping, and a few kisses. What fool. Ella was horrified when she discovered Ronald's long history of affairs and how he had caused Camila's divorce. Realizing that Ronald had cheated on his wife and family with multiple women, she saw how close she had come to destroying her own life and the love of her family through her own foolishness. She vowed never to make that mistake again and was dedicated to proving her loyalty to Timothy and the children. True to her word, she remained faithfully committed. Yet, no matter how hard she tried, she could not rid herself of the image of that young girl with her husband. She resolved never to give him another chance to stray. He belonged to her, after all. Ronald paid dearly for his infidelity with a married woman. Cheating with someone else's spouse can be not only an expensive hobby, but also a dangerous one if he had picked the wrong husband. The ironic thing about unwilling cuckolds is that they never forget and eventually seek revenge. 2 years after Michael's divorce from Camila, who worked at Ella's office, Michael found himself in the pub's parking lot as Ronald was about to get into his car. About an hour later, another patron from the pub discovered Ronald unconscious, face down on the pavement. Whether or not Ronald would ever learn his lesson remained to be seen. A wise man once said, "Not one scar on my heart came from an enemy. They came from people who said they loved me." Thank you for watching this video to the end. If you liked it, please like it and subscribe to the channel. See you soon.